Are there parts of you that you miss from before you were held captive? And similarly, what are the parts of you that you feel proud of that you cultivated
Hmm.
since you were held captive?
I think I had a carefree attitude uh, towards things like foreign travel, right? Um, um, Spontaneous interactions. Um, and I don't feel comfortable in those kinds of settings anymore. And I miss that. I would say that, some of it is probably psychological response, but some of it's practical, right? I mean, not only did I survive an incredible assault on my freedom and my well-being, um, but I've continued to have people attack me virtually and threaten. The Iranian government still threatens me. There are large swaths of the globe that I can't safely travel to, and I know that. Um, but I am proud. Proud may not be the right word. I'm satisfied that I haven't cowered from that and have used the truly massive platforms available to me to try and um, make it harder for governments to do this to other people, and try and care for the people who have um, sadly and unfortunately been subjected to a similar type of abuse of power. And also, I think, really kind of importantly and essentially, there's a community of people working on these issues. And I call us a community. Most of us are doing this work or had been doing this work individually or independently, but we run in packs, right? We start to see similar trends and focus on various things. And I'm proud that been able to make a dent in how the U.S. government um, looks at these cases, right? This is not a consular matter, right? You have to take it out of that realm. Just because it's a government doing it, it's an act of terrorism. Taking someone hostage to use as leverage in negotiations is by our law, one of a handful of acts of terrorism, and we have to treat it. And it's taken a long time to convince a lot of people, whether it's members of Congress, members of uh, you know officials at the State Department, in the Justice Department. It's like, hey, look, you guys made these laws, right? And as a victim, I tend to agree, right? And all of these other victims agree. So, what are we going to do? One, to um, make it harder. Two, to support the safe and healthy return of people who are going through something similar. And three, exact some kind of justice on the back end. And these are the things that I've dedicated not my life to, but a lot of my waking hours to over the last 8 years. And I feel like we've made real progress. I mean, President Biden uh, deserves a lot of credit. President Trump deserves a lot of credit for prioritizing this issue. I don't care what the motivations for prioritizing it is. No American or citizen of any country should be subjected to this. And I think it was wise of the Biden administration to declare a national emergency on hostage taking back in 2022. And I think it's sort of changed the course of history on this issue.
And hopefully there will be less hostages to have to negotiate for in the future with the awareness and the changes in the US policy as well. You had mentioned terrorism. You also were the subject of disinformation following your imprisonment. I remember a few years ago we spoke about some Iranian propaganda series that was retelling your time behind bars. What was that like?
So, it's interesting. They fictionalized this story about me. They changed my name, right? But it's obviously supposed to be me. And when we say a propaganda series, in your mind, you think it's a shoddy uh, sort of uh, two-bit production. In reality, this was the highest budgeted television series in the history of the Islamic Republic.
Is that
Uh,
almost, I mean, what does that say? I mean, I don't want to call it a compliment to you, but in some
it's
strange way,
bizarre. First of all, it's really bizarre. Second, I was not compensated.
wouldn't that
Uh,
have been
but 30 episodes in which I'm portrayed as this sort of super spy. Um, and none of it, is based in any kind of reality except for the last episode or two when they deal with the my release. And it's really interesting because they've reversed reality in some ways. They've told the story of how I was released in the way that they wish it had happened. Right? So it's quite telling of their inferiority complexes. I don't know, I'm sure some of your subscribers have watched Tehran, the Apple Plus series, which I thought was really entertaining. But I tell people, the only thing about this that's not realistic is that in this show, the Mossad, right, the Israeli intelligence, is always a step or two ahead of the Revolutionary Guards. In reality, they're 1,000 steps ahead, right? Iran's security services are, uh, I think they've only been successful in creating a facade uh, of strength. Um, the truth is, they're constantly going after people like me who are innocent individuals working in broad daylight, transparently, and with, permission to be there, while others, like we just saw recently, are able to pull off assassinations of the highest level officials, right? Whether they're Iranian or Palestinian or other officials. I mean, the number of assassinations pulled off by the Mossad inside Iranian territory of incredibly high level people should be, the big story of, wow, the Islamic Republic is not that strong. But they're pretty strong at messaging. And, when that show came out, I started getting a slew of death threats. Some of them, would keep the Washington Post security team and the FBI informed about these, and some of them were credible enough that, I needed extra security at my home for, extended periods of time. Um, so while I'm able to laugh at it because I think I have a pretty good sense of humor, it wasn't all a joke, right? And so this is why I tell people, like, we have to do more to not only protect folks like this, but provide uh, consequences for people who are guilty of this kind of abuse and terror, and some justice. And without it, we're making a mockery of our own judiciary and legal system.
the idea of justice is an interesting point that I haven't heard another detainee discuss because so much of the conversation is focused on moving on. And if
I
you're
have I have the benefit of more years than some of those folks in my rear view, and can tell you that the scars and the ways that my life have changed, not by any doing of my own, are deserving of justice, of something, right? And uh, we can get into talking about the ways that justice exists, but a big part of it is holding these actors accountable, right? Like I think that's really the only way to deter this moving forward. Create a cost.
Who would you hold accountable? Would you hold accountable the Iranian president who, I mean, one previously died in a helicopter
Yeah.
crash, another was just
Look, I mean, the producer of that television series that you talked about was a long-term uh, communications advisor to the president who um, died in that or was killed. I mean, we don't know. Died in a helicopter crash. And he traveled to the UNGA a couple of times, right, as part of an entourage. So, and you know, posted pictures of himself in New York City. This person is guilty of defaming me and putting my life at new risk. I understand you're not gonna, the UN has rules. You're not gonna arrest a president or a foreign minister. Okay, I get it. But all of these other people, why is this guy given a visa to come to the United States? And then the response to that is, by the law enforcement and legal community is that these people will fall through the cracks and we don't know who they are. I'm here to tell you who they are. Right? I've suggested to the FBI that when people come home, they do kind of the composite sketches, right? So many of the former detainees from Iran, and we're now a couple of dozen people, we've all dealt with the same folks. And then again, the excuse is, well, these, intelligence officers don't leave the country. You don't know that. You don't know that. You haven't even tried, right? Commit a small amount of resources to this, and I think we would yield really great results. And then if you start doing arrests and prosecutions of these people, or even catch and releases when they, are in third countries, um, it'll send a message that we're paying attention. But right now, the message that we're sending is not only are we not paying attention, we've accepted this as a cost of doing business.
that's chilling, absolutely chilling. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, considering the fact that you're still threatened, that there are still these pieces that come to the surface, and so much of your identity has been tied up in this. I know that having this conversation is really valuable. Um, but I also hope that you're able to have conversations that go beyond this as well.
If you want to come back on, we can talk about some of those in the future. But I think a big part of, for me, the taking back of this story and repurposing it uh, for my own um, health and sanity, that of my family, is fundamentally important. But then, trying to bring some comfort to these other folks. I've had the opportunity to communicate directly with one of the former detainees already, and with their families of two of the others. And it's, I'm so relieved and happy that they're home, but also, continue to have concern for their ongoing recovery.
Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate it.